Tonight's recipe is simple and delicious and great for both vegetarians and steak lovers. To get started, we are going to lay out all our ingredients. I'm going to be using dino kale, which happens to be one of my favorites, some delicious fresh burrata, which we're going to be putting on top. I also have some steak, some homemade Cajun spices, and some delicious cauliflower. To get started, we're going to chop up our cauliflower into large steak pieces, but first, don't forget to set your oven to 350. I typically like to cook mine all the way through to the root. We're going to cut that part out later, and about 1 inch thick so it resembles a steak. I set those aside. We're going to be adding them to a foil lined baking sheet. The trick here is to add a little bit of olive oil, and then we're going to actually season them right on the tray. That way we don't waste any of that delicious Cajun seasoning. You can also just add some garlic salt or some onion salt to this if you want to kind of tone the flavors down. I also love just a very simple smoked paprika. It gives it a delicious smoky flavor. You can really try anything. I'm going to paint on some more olive oil to the top just to make sure it has enough so it doesn't get too dry. And then we're going to throw those into the oven for about 20 minutes at 350. While those are roasting, I'm going to prep our steak. Today, I'm going to be using a skirt steak. If you are going to be using skirt steak, try to avoid inside skirt and try to find one that's outside. You'll know because the width is about 3 to 4 inches wide, and it's much tastier, it's much more tender, and it's much thicker. So ask your local butcher for the outside skirt steak because it's super delicious. I am going to be keeping with the Cajun theme, so we have seasoned those with my homemade Cajun spices, which I will link down below. And we are going to throw those into a cast iron skillet and get them cooked up. While that's happening, I'm going to start prepping our other fresh ingredients, which consists of onions and my dino kale. I like to remove the ribs of my dino kale because I find them to be quite bitter, and I'm just going to chop up a yellow onion. Once the steak is done, I like to keep all those wonderful steak flavors in the pan. I'm going to be adding the onions into, and then I'm going to scrape that off with a little bit of some chicken stock. If you ever have spices kind of stuck to a cast iron skillet, just use some chicken stock. It'll come right off with a whisk. Once your onions are sauteed, throw in your dino kale and turn off the heat. Go ahead and pull out your beautiful cauliflower steaks. These look so good. I always like to offer some options if you are cooking for a large family like I am. So for the kids tonight, I did a little butter pasta. I'm going to add some steak to their plate. I'm also adding some fruit. The important thing here is to just modify what you are making for your adult people in your house and make it kid-friendly. So I'm breaking down the dish I made for my husband and I and making it more kid-friendly so I don't have to make 2 meals every single night and everybody gets something healthy. Now for our dinner, I am going to put a giant pile of that kale and onion saute down and top it with one of the cauliflower steaks. I love to add burrata to the top of this. By the time I sit down, it is nice and melted. And as a non-vegetarian option, I put a little steak on there. I also added an avocado with some green goddess dressing. I'll put the recipe for that down below, and a little bit of chipotle dipping sauce, and topped it with a dust of smoked paprika. Enjoy!